Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Billy's Juice Plus podcast. So excited today to have Michelle Barnett as a guest. It's about time, Michelle. Thank you for being on.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so let me start with Michelle's bio, everybody, and then we'll jump into the conversation. So Michelle lives in Tyler, Texas with her husband, Brian, and daughter, Brooklyn. She got her degree at Oklahoma State University and started her career in advertising and marketing. Just 3.5 years into her career, she was introduced to the Juice Plus company, and her life has never been the same. Her passion for wellness led her to becoming a health coach, and she is now an executive marketing director with the Juice Plus company. Michelle has been a main stage speaker at 3 of the national Juice Plus leadership conferences and has trained at boot camps and regionals across the country. Michelle has been nominated for 12 Club, 24 Club, and 39 Club Member of the Year. That's all the ones you can be nominated, except for rookie, maybe. That's all the stuff. She loves being a mom, traveling, teaching spin class, being outside, and inspiring other mamas to incorporate the Juice Plus products and mission into their lives. We talk to rock stars every time, but sometimes your bio is just like so clear. It's like sometimes like do, right? So impressive. I know you're humble about that, but it's still legit. It's still true. We might as well name it, call it what it is. So thanks for being on. You've got so much good stuff to share with us. So once again, thank you. And let's start as we often do. How'd you hear about Juice Plus? This is an interesting story.
It is.
And why did it ring true for you, and why'd you start the business too?
All right. So I first heard about Juice Plus from a guy I was dating at the time. And he actually gave me some bottles of Juice Plus to try. I had never heard of it, never seen it, but I trusted him. So I started taking it. And I was really surprised, impressed, shocked that I actually noticed benefits when I started taking the product. And that got me asking questions, learning more about the products, looking a little bit at the research, kind of trying to figure out what was in these capsules. Why is it doing something when vitamins in the past hadn't made much of a difference? And that got me wanting to share it with my family, because I'm from a family very meat and potatoes, Oklahoma, and I knew that this would be a great solution for them because they would not decide to change their lifestyle completely. But this was a simple, easy button to add in. And so that's kind of how I looped into the business, because I said, hey, I want my mom, my dad, and my grandma to start Juice Plus. And he was like, great, well, why don't you become a partner? And you can tell, you're telling them about it. You can help take care of them. And I got to thinking, and I realized not only could I make some extra money back by helping them get started and on my own product, but I could also, I didn't think that they would buy from anyone else. I felt like I was the only person that they really trusted, and they wouldn't buy from him or someone else. So I really needed to be their advocate. So that's why I joined the business, just to help my family.
I love that word. I love that you thought of it as an advocate. You weren't like, okay, listen, I can make a little bit of money because my whole family needs this, or even they need it, but I can also make, you're just like, I've got to do this because they really have to take this and they're only gonna listen to me. There's some responsibility and power and conviction in the word advocate, would you say?
Yeah, I definitely felt compelled to be the person kind of twisting their arm to try it, because I felt so passionate that it could help them.
Yeah, no, that's something I think we all have to tap into if we're really going to go out there and make a real difference. So you felt that conviction, but interestingly, if we look back in your story, you are also a natural entrepreneur. You told me in college you did a network marketing business, or you dabbled in a network marketing business. I think you said in that one you lost more money than you made. And you did start a health coaching business as well after college, not right after college. You did the advertising thing in Chicago, but then you did some health coaching. That was about 4 years. That was a successful business. So tell me about that entrepreneur gene. Is it a gene? Like, why do you think you have it? What do you think sets entrepreneurs apart? What can we learn from what you know and who you are?
I feel like for me, there's a catalyst for most people who become an entrepreneur, whether there's a problem they're trying to solve, or a pain point they're trying to avoid. For me, it was a pain point. I saw my parents divorced when I was young. My dad worked for himself as a farmer and rancher. So he worked long hours, hard work, worked a lot. And then my mom put herself back through school when we were growing up, worked like 2 or 3 jobs as a single mom. And I saw my parents working so hard and, you know, earning okay money, but not like to the point where we could do things and go on vacations and have things in our lives that, I mean, that would make it a little bit easier and smoother. And I had to take on a lot of responsibility as a kid because of a single parent household. And so I think it was a ingrained thing for me to want to make my future different, to want to make my future smoother or have more options and opportunities in the future. And like for me, corporate didn't offer that. When I was in corporate world for a few years, I kind of realized that entrepreneurship was the way to have a little more control with your future and your destiny, because a lot of opportunities in entrepreneurship they are what you make them, the time, the grit, the sweat, the passion that you put into them. So I think it stems from my childhood for me, was that was the catalyst.
Well, and it's interesting that, you said you had kind of a vision for where you wanted to go, and what you saw was, this being an entrepreneur as the path to get you there. And I also think that's something else, that people who do this successfully have to go, no, kind of burn the ships. You heard that,
Yes.
We're not going anywhere else. It's gonna, now, of course, there's a lot of different opportunities, entrepreneurially, right? And you've tried a few different ones. I know one reason why Juice Plus is your thing, and I know there's a number of reasons, is because of what Juice Plus as well as plants have done for you and your body. We know, I mean, like my message, my calling is tell everybody, God made plants to heal and protect our bodies, more than anything else. I mean, maybe water, right? He made water too. We need plants. People kind of know that, but they don't, they push it aside. They don't do it. They don't know how to do it. Anyway, so you did it. You started taking Juice Plus. You've had 5 major knee surgeries. Back when you, I think, first started taking Juice Plus, you had a really, you can tell us the details. Just tell us all the stuff, because it just went really, really well. And you were just convinced flooding my body with plants is good and everybody needs to know. So tell us the story.
Yeah. So I started Juice Plus. I noticed the normal things, extra energy, just skin, hair, nail benefits. But the biggest thing for me was 3 months after starting, I had a major orthopedic knee surgery, a cartilage transplant, and the doctors worked with the Chicago Bulls, the White Sox. He was one of the leading surgeons on this surgery. And he said, it's going to take a year for you to heal. Sorry, I was running half marathons at the time, working out 6-7 days a week, and my lifestyle was going to completely, go upside down. I wasn't going to be able to do active things. And so I respectfully said, okay, but I'm going to go look and see and be my own advocate to figure out how I can heal faster, if there's ways I can get better quicker. And that's when I started researching everything holistic, natural. And I came across the research for Juice Plus, showing that it helps reduce inflammation, increases blood flow, helps with healing, all things you need when you're coming off of a big surgery and you have all this swelling and immobility. And so for me, I was going to be my own experiment. I started taking extra Juice Plus right after my surgery for several months. And that led to being able to do P90X workouts about 6 months after surgery. And then
he said it should take a year.
Yes. Yeah. For really active physical weight bearing activity. So I sped that up. And then 8 months, I hiked Pikes Peak in Colorado. I got off of, medications that I was on for inflammation, and just the influx of plants reduced the inflammation in my body and allowed my body to do what it's supposed to do, which is to heal and repair. So I feel like Juice Plus was the fuel that allowed my body to do what God created and designed it to do.
Yeah, it was a fuel and unlock things. So some things that you mentioned, those are from gold standard, multiple gold standard studies showing, this is happening in humans. They're published in peer-reviewed journals. And you mentioned blood flow, and people are kind of like, blood flow. One thing I love is in the 2 skin studies, it showed that increases circulation, blood flow to the skin. And people go, okay, so what's that about? Well, the blood carries the nutrients.
Mhm.
So, we need it getting to the different places, right? Not slow down, not enough, not stopping. But if people realize, whoa, are you saying plants can do this? I don't have to take those things with the side effects, and it can have more impact than I can ever imagine.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's what you experienced that. I don't know if it was just that or what it was, but around this time, tell me if my timeline is right. You quit your ad job in Chicago.
Mhm.
You and your sponsor broke up because y'all were
Yeah.
dating. Still your sponsor officially. Uh, you
Yes.
you moved. That's so funny. You moved to Texas without a job to go to.
Yeah.
I mean, was it partly because Juice Plus was so amazing? You're like, forget that. I'm just going to tell the world I Juice Plus. I think there's some other stuff too, right? But at some point, Kurt Beavers calls you, and if
Mhm.
anybody in our world knows Kurt, he's now really kind of your sponsor.
Yeah.
But how does that? I mean, you take a big leap of faith, and then how does it go from there?
Yeah. So I was in a unique position because I was young and naive, and I saw potential with Juice Plus, but I also was so worn down by the corporate world, going through a breakup. It was kind of a quarter life crisis, if you will. And I'd always wanted to live in Austin, and I just decided this was the time for me to make a change. And I figured I could always work part-time in advertising while I figure things out, find a job, and had friends I could live with. And so God kind of aligned the details for that to happen. But I know it was a turning point in my life that set me up to be in a position to really tackle Juice Plus head on, and to be able to make that decision that this is the career path, this is the choice I wanted to make, and this is what I wanted to kind of commit to. And he did call me because we had a few coaching calls. He knew my sponsor that we broke up, and he just decided to see if this is something I wanted to pursue. He knew that I wouldn't have the support from that person, so he offered it to me. And I think I said yes, not knowing what it would look like or how it could turn out, but I just trusted him. I just saw his success. I saw that he was willing to invest in me and mentor me, and that was huge. And so the next thing I did after, I think it was a few months later, I went to my first conference, and that's really was the turning. I mean, Kurt was the seed that was planted, and the person that got me to come to conference, he was the only person I knew. I got on a plane. I had no team. I just went there, and
Wow.
I had never met him in person. So it was really a leap of faith,
Wow. You
a
you
leap
are
of faith.
like an expert at taking leaps of faith. I've
Apparently.
well, yeah, because you leave your job in Chicago and then you go to Austin. Like, I've always wanted to live in Austin, so I'm going to Austin.
Yeah.
And then Kurt Beavers, who you've talked to before, okay, I think like this is a legit guy, but you've never met him. You're the only one you know. Like, I'm going to this conference. I mean, not everybody does that.
Yeah.
Back to you did a network marketing in college, certainly not a lot, especially back then. It might be a little more popular now. I don't know. But anyway, do that. You start your own business. Additionally, with the health coaching, talk to us. This is a curveball. I always tell people, okay, we didn't prepare for this one, but talk to us about leaps of faith. What does it take to take a leap of faith, and how important do you think it is to be a successful entrepreneur to be able to take those?
I think it's really important for success because it requires faith and confidence and belief that even if you fail, you're failing forward, and you're going towards something that you ultimately want or dream or desire. And so I knew there was a possibility that it wouldn't work out, but I believed that I was going to go down fighting, and that once I commit to something, I'm a person that just kind of jumps all in. And so it was going to conference was really that leap of faith, and that was going to be the deciding factor. Like, when I was at that conference, is this what I'm truly committing to? So it was kind of the litmus test for me to decide, are these the people I want to align with, the community, the products, kind of check all the boxes. And it was.
I wonder how many people, and I'll just let you say something short about this. We'll go to the next question. But I wonder how many people miss out. I mean, God, Romans 8:28, right, works all things together for good for those who know him, call to love him, call him, something, and called according to his purpose. But anyway, he works all things out. But I wonder if we do sometimes potentially miss out on kind of like, option A or
Yeah.
however that works, because we're not willing to take leaps of faith. We're not willing to take a risk, a chance, even something not huge, but kind of, I wouldn't do it probably. It would be scary for me to go to a place I don't know anybody. What do you think about, I mean, how many people are sitting out there like, I want what Michelle has, but if I'm honest with myself, I haven't taken the leaps of faith that she has.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think fear is a liar and it holds you back. And I try to think about what's the worst that can happen. I mean, and really, and I try to be realistic, but inherently I'm an idealistic person and I'm an extreme extrovert. So I was like, the worst that can happen, I go to this trip and I'm in Florida and I meet some new friends and I have a good time, and that's end of story. Like, and then I go back and get a regular job. Like, I knew there was always, I guess I always am confident in myself and in God's provision and protection of me, that there's always going to be a landing place. It may not look like what I thought, it may not be the direction I thought, but if I feel called or passionate towards something, I'm going to go towards it until I get that no from him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that. It really is about, we talked about this in the last podcast conversation with Kim Douglas, about a mindset, right? If your mindset is such a place that you say, what's the worst that can happen? This is going to be okay. There's good things that are going to happen no matter how it turns out. You can take the leap of faith. And it's so important to take those leaps, especially when God is leading. So you share with me that your most challenging step, this is true for a lot of people, but not everybody. For you, it was SC to SSC. And it makes sense. You really got to start building, I think, some team at that point. It's interesting, though, that when you did kind of work through the season, the journey of getting to SSC, your hardest step, I want to hear about that. You also, once you got there, met your future husband. And it just feels to me like in the story, God was setting everything up, right, for you. But you have to be faithful. Jim Rohn talks about that. You do have to be, I think, what do you say? Somebody came along and said, oh, there's a beautiful garden that God did. And Jim's like, well, yeah, but somebody planted it, and God just made it grow. So talk to us about that journey to SSC. Talk to us about meeting Brian and how God, just when we're faithful and obedient, does seem to bring things together.
Yeah. So getting to SSC, it's a growth period. It requires, like, when you become a leader in any company and anything you do, it requires personal growth and development. And for me, it was growing into not only just a leader, but a leader of leaders, to be able to be someone who not only does the activity herself, that's the easy part for me, but it's duplicating that within other people, building confidence and belief in others that they can do it, pouring into them. And that just is a skill that you learn. And some people learn it quick. Some people it takes time. Some people it takes trial and error. And for me, that was just a really big growth period where I felt like I had a lot of obstacles, but once I got through them and was able to grow into the leader of leaders, then I was at a place where I knew what I needed to do and I could continue to do it with other people and help them go towards their hopes and dreams. And it just became smoother once I kind of figured that piece out for myself. And I think it's an individual thing. You have to learn it, what it looks like for you.
And I am curious, for you specifically, how did Michelle lead prior to becoming a leader of leaders? And how did she lead once she became a leader of leaders? And people obviously notice, because then the team starts growing.
Yeah. I think before, I've always been one to lead by example, but I think I did too much for people and I spoon fed them and I didn't help them to stand on their own 2 feet in their business. I did all the calls for them. I did all the support that is great, but it can enable people to become dependent on that and not help them actually step into leadership themselves. And so it was a fine balance of my caretaker desires to help them and nurture them, and to parallel that with also trying to be help them become responsible leaders for themselves so that they could achieve the growth that they need. It's like I was parenting them like I was teaching them like they were elementary preschoolers when I needed to be teaching them like teenagers where they had more responsibilities and were able to do things for themselves. So it's just learning to trust God, to let go, to hold people with open arms, give them the tools, equip them, but don't be the tool that kind of sucks the wind out of you and makes them too dependent.
Yeah, I was going to say that takes trust because you do have to let go because you're like, well, I can do all these things. So if you just get out of my way, I can do it.
Yes.
But then you realize there's a limit, even to your level of awesomeness. There's a limit, right? Where you got to trust and find out who really wants to step up. But you got to make that space so they can. So obviously you did that because you got to NMD in 2015, and as we talked about, not only went all the way to 39 Club, which was at one point our highest club level that gets recognized, still one of the highest. Not only went to that, but got nominated for 12 Club, 24 Club, 39 Club of the year. Huge accomplishments, lots of lives impacted. Tell us about the journey, obviously to SSC was becoming a leader of leaders. Mm-hmm. Is it just a continuation of that to get to all the way to 39? I mean, that's rare air. Or what else would you add where you'd say, well, if you're going to go that high, this is, at least for Michelle, for you, this is what you learned that it required to get you there?
Yeah. I obviously had a lot of life change between SSC and 39 Club. And so I would say it does take a duplication of those efforts of leaders, but it also requires continual growth because I got to national marketing director, and then my husband and I were fortunate enough to be able to travel full time in a motorhome for 2 years. And I was able to maintain my business and have some good success, but I got distracted and I was just maintaining. I wasn't continuing to grow in my leadership, to grow myself. And there's a trickle down effect that happens with your team. When you become complacent, it breeds complacency. So for me, I had about 2 years of that, and then realized with my husband, he has done the business with me since we got married in different capacities. And we kind of decided that we were going to settle down. We wanted different things in our lives at that point. And I just got my fire back. And I think in order to grow to that level, you have to have more systems in place. You have to have processes. You have to have boundaries with your time and your talents, because this is just like other businesses that you basically own. You can work all the time and if you have no boundaries, and you can get really burnt out. And I had seasons of that. And so just learning as a leader to each step required a new discipline. If that makes sense.
That's really good. And I like that you say for each person, it is going to be different.
Yeah.
But what everybody can take as like this general, it applies to everybody, is if you're trying to get to the next level, and hopefully all of us are, then start praying, start looking, start asking your mentors, what might be the discipline I need to add to my toolkit or I need to learn? Because once again, they might all be different, but we know we've got to be learning and growing. And you said when you weren't learning and growing, that's when the business wasn't learning and growing.
Yeah.
We're going to do some kind of rapid fires. You already mentioned burnout and boundaries. And it's really interesting, like you said, with this business or any business that you own, you can work as much as you want. You can also work as little as you want, but some people like overdo it. But there are people who come to this business and go, "What? How can you overdo it? Like, can't like the harder you work, the more you make, right?" And I found that's kind of true in the corporate world, maybe, but I don't think I think it has like a reverse effect here almost. You overdo it. Maybe you're not so duplicatable. I don't know what the answer is, but that's why you're here. You're the expert. What do you think? What did you experience how'd you get burned out? How'd you realize you got burned out? I know you set boundaries. Tell us a little bit about that and why it's so important to do this business in a balanced way.
Yeah. Going back to my parents, they're very hard workers. They're kind of workaholic borderline. And I always admired their work ethic. They have great work ethic, and they put that into me. And so I feel like because I have a really strong work ethic, I want to do the best I can in everything I do. And when you have a business like this and you have so many people you're working with, there's always going to be someone who needs your time and attention or who's trying to get it. And I just got to a point where I was spreading myself too thin, and I was giving my time and attention to people who weren't using it wisely or weren't, taking the seeds I was planting and flourishing. And so I had to reassess, how am I doing this? How am I doing coaching? Do I need to do this many one-on-ones? Can I group them together? Can I create team things where people are coaching each other instead of just me coaching them? So I had to learn how to multiply myself. And also I am a person who likes that control. And so I had to let go of the control and trust that there were other capable people on my team who could step into those leadership roles, who could run our Facebook groups, who could create images and flyers for our team. Like, there are other things and other people who can do those. And I didn't have to be the only person. And it really started when I was an SSC. I felt God calling me to have a Sabbath. It was something I always struggled with, to take a day off, because there's people messaging you, hey, I want to order. And you're like, I'm taking, I'm not supposed to be working, but they want to order or whatever. And God really put on my heart that he can do more in 1 minute than I can do in 24 hours. And I had to it just convicted me. And so since then, I've been not perfect, but really striving every week to take a Sabbath day, a day off. My team knows I take a Sabbath. If I get messages, I just don't respond to them until the next day, and just setting boundaries like that. And then setting boundaries with my time on the days that now that I have a daughter, there's days where I'm just with her during certain times and I don't do things for work. And that makes my home life better. It makes me feel better. And they all know I'm more duplicatable that way, because they have families and they have things they need to do. They're not expected to be on 24/7. Because they don't see me on 24/7.
So I love that you said, when we talked before this, that one key to this business is always meeting new people. For whatever reason, especially this season on the podcast, I've been hearing that a lot. Maybe it's just the right time for me too. My ears are perking up. And you said that's like one of your skills.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know, for like network marketing, hello, if your network just stays that big, well, this is the only influence you're going to have, right?
Yeah.
It has to keep growing. And yet that can feel a little intimidating or overwhelming, or how am I going to do that to some people? But it's like, that's the actual work that we really do, is connecting with new people. Tell us how you do it. Tell us about that concept. Tell us why it's so important and what you've experienced.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest fears in this type of business is being pushy and harping on people. And what I learned is, if you're consistently connecting with new people, there's always people going into your pipeline. There's always people at different stages of the buying or teaming up with you process. And your well never runs dry. You don't have to badger someone. You don't have to coerce or force or anything, because they get to be on their own natural timeline when there's no pressure, because you're already on to the next person and the next person. And it frees you up to not feel like you have to force conversations. You can have natural, learn their needs, learn what benefits are going to help them the most, speak to those needs, get curious. And I think that you can do that if you have a steady stream of people that you are connecting with. And not everyone I connect with I'm not talking to them about Juice Plus immediately, or maybe for weeks or months or days. It just depends on the person and what conversation we have. Some ways I do this, I do it online, I do it in person. Once we actually move back to a city and put down some roots, I just look for ways to get involved. I got involved in my church. I do a mom's group at another church. I did a mom's workout group. I volunteered. I just get involved in different things that I'm already interested in. I work out, I teach spin class. So I don't try to meet people in places that are difficult for me. I think, what do I want to do as a person? I want to work out and do spin class. Okay, I'm going to teach. I'm going to meet people there. I want to work out with other moms. I'm going to do that. And these are things I would normally do. I want to be involved in church groups. So I'm just doing things I'm naturally drawn to and meeting people who have those common interests, which opens the door to have more fruitful conversations, to speak into their life about other things, including Juice Plus. Online, I send a birthday message, a video birthday message to all the women. I kind of focus on women. That's my target audience, to all the women on my Facebook. So every day I just go through and I send a video message telling them happy birthday and asking them what they're looking forward to this year. And it's
Wow, that's
gotten
awesome.
so many new conversations started. People, I'm like, they respond and then I'm like, how do I know this person? I might have met them like once 10 years ago, but we're still Facebook friends. And then Instagram, I send a message to any new person that follows me. And I just say, hey, thanks for connecting with me here. I'd love to know more about you, or tell me more about you, or how did we get connected, or something like that. So it's bringing new people in consistently. And then I have Facebook groups that are focused on wellness or plant-based eating, and people join those groups that I don't know because they're searching for plant-based eating or they're searching for wellness. And so I get to connect with them. I provide free content. We do, group programs through those groups. And I feel like there's lots of ways if you just get creative.
Yeah, no, I think people have to understand, and I think they do because you explained it clearly enough. Like if you'd stopped halfway through, I think it would have been like, okay, so you go and hang out. I hang out. Why am I not meeting the people? But as you finished, like if you said the whole thing, it's like, wow, you are very intentional. And in that intentionality, you go, I don't think of a better word, but anyway, deep, right? You make it real, significant, right? You give them a significant touch, right? I mean, like, for example, it's not just happy birthday, which might be more than the average person does. Happy birthday to everybody every day, right? Just typing it in. You're making a video and asking them a question, right? You've got these Facebook groups. And I think as I understand it, when you're going out and about in your day, or when you're plugging these groups, this is not like, yeah, I'm in a couple different groups. It's once a week. I'm probably out of the house twice a week. You're probably out of the house almost every day, or at least a majority of the days, and meeting people. And so you're like, I think people need to understand you're very intentional about this. This is the core, not only of who you are, which really helps, but you
Yeah.
understand this is the core of what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not a lot of time, but I just use my time wisely, and I do things that I would be doing anyway. So it doesn't feel like a disruption in my schedule. As far as the in-person things, my daughter's going to ballet now. So for 30-45 minutes every Friday, I get to talk with the new moms that I didn't know before that are sitting, waiting on their kids with ballet. So these are just things my family would be doing or I would be doing. And I just use it as an opportunity to mine the relationship and get to know them. Then I connect with them on social media, and it just, brings it full circle.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next one, which is prayer. This is connected to all the things, but we're connecting it specifically to meeting people. And I know that you pray and you ask God, okay, who do you want me to meet today or in this group? Or what conversations can I have? How can I bless people? Talk to us about the element of prayer as it involves building your business.
Yeah, I think that we don't meet people by accident. I think God puts people in our lives for a reason, and some it may be for Juice Plus, some it may be for other reasons. And so I really try to be prayerful and mindful of, Lord, help me to see the people that you're bringing into my life. Help me to be aware, to know how to serve them, engage them, to be obedient to your calling when I'm supposed to say something to them, maybe, or ask them something. And I do ask him to bring the right people who are going to be a good fit to partner with me, and people that are looking for a solution that I have. So it's multidimensional. It's not the same rote prayer every day or every week. It's just a genuine desire to marry ability to connect with ability to serve and to fulfill whatever role I'm supposed to have in their life.
Yeah, and there's probably people out there listening who, believe in prayer, they pray, but why do we talk about this? Because I think, once again, it requires intentionality.
Yeah.
It doesn't require it, but if you want to incorporate it in
Yeah.
the business, right,
Yeah.
then you've got to kind of wake up and to be intentional to pray, God, who do you want me to bless today? It requires you to start with the thought, I'm called to do this business and I'm called to bless people today.
Mhm.
Therefore, I'm going to ask you, well, you must have a plan. So where do you want, now we're connecting it all. Where do you want me to take a leap of faith and have some courage, to speak up? So it's almost like you're taking little leaps of faith
Yeah.
every day, but there's still leaps of faith that a lot of people wouldn't take.
Yeah.
But you are, as you pray, okay, God, I'm going to plug in this group. Then who do you want me to bless? Now I'm going to take a leap of faith to connect with that person. Am I hearing that right? Is that what we
Yeah.
need to be doing more of?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And in the last bullet point, we were doing the kind of the quick questions on was ministry. You've already talked about lifestyle. We had that in there, but you talked about that and what it's done for you. But ministry, and that's obviously it's connected to prayer, it's connected to meeting the people. But how, describe to us how you see your business as a ministry.
I feel like for me, it is a vehicle for me to be a leader and an influencer of women, to remind them where their worth comes from, to build them up. Exhortation is one of my spiritual gifts, to encourage them and to remind them of the hope that we have in him. And through our business, you get so intimately acquainted with people's woes and struggles and mental blocks and hardships, and to be able to speak truth and hope and love them in the midst of the hard, it speaks volumes to people. And I've had people come into my team who didn't believe this stuff, didn't pray, who had never been to a church setting or anything, who have become followers of Christ because of our team and our community and the way they were loved and exposed to the truth that we share. It's not like a shove it down your throat. It's just an embodiment in our everyday interactions.
Yeah, I love that word embodiment, because what you're saying, it's just like in Juice Plus, you're the example, you're modeling it, right? You can't ask somebody to do what you don't do. And also if you do it, then it's going to rub off on people. And I also love, when you're embodying the leap of faith, and then people maybe are saying, how do you take these leaps of faith? And how do you know where to go? And you go, well, I can't train you without at least mentioning Jesus, or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot, especially in our current lives. It wasn't this way maybe 100, 200, whatever years ago, but we've compartmentalized so much now.
Yeah.
And yet it really is all connected. And it sounds like that's how you've almost always lived your life. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, it's a holistic experience. I mean, if it's something is, if faith is a big part of who you are, it's going to naturally bleed into every other area. And why would you want to keep it out?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you definitely had to have some faith in this last year. I think you told me it was maybe your hardest year. You can change that word if I didn't get the word right, but definitely a challenging year. You have had a couple of people, you got this massive team. You did have a couple of leaders. One was a QNMD even, and a really good friend lead your team. Yeah, I just wonder if you could, the main reason I'm asking this question, because we've all experienced people stopping or leaving or whatever, but we are in a season where I think really exciting things are happening in the Juice Plus company 52-year history. Our family's been with Juice Plus for 26 of those years. And so we know there's ups and downs. And I can really tell, I'm sure you can too, that we're like about to just explode with the things that are happening. But over the last year, we've all experienced some hard stuff. And that's why I'm specifically addressing this. What was that experience like, with people, leaving, and how did you was it a shock? How did you handle it? How did you manage through it? And how did you get to where you're at today? And how are you today, given the challenge of that?
Yeah, it was a shock and a surprise. And not that I ever thought I was immune to it, but I think in my idealistic view of the world and life, I just convinced myself that it was a very unlikely possibility. I've listened to network marketing podcasts and trainings for years. You always hear about leaders of big teams having people leave. And for me, it was just like, oh, well, that stinks for how do people do that? Why do people do that? I just couldn't comprehend that happening. So when it did happen, it was definitely jarring and shocking, and you go through all the emotions, because these are people you love, you care about, you've invested in, you've trained up, you poured a bunch of time and energy into them, and it's sad. But ultimately, the Lord has shown me that he calls us all to where he calls us. And it's not for me to control or dictate what somebody else's path, how it veers or, meanders. And even though I didn't understand, I didn't support it, I didn't maybe think it was the right decision, I had to trust, and I had to open my hands and say, God, if this is what you're doing with our team or with this person, I trust that you are going to, if you're allowing it, you're going to bring us through it. And I had to try to find the silver lining in these hard situations. And my NMD song was Overcomer by Mandisa. And it just reminded me, this is an opportunity to be an overcomer. This is an opportunity to really get clear. Why am I here? What am I doing? Is this where I'm supposed to be? How can I lead? It made me want to lead my team better. It made me want to go bigger, to reignite that fire and passion in me, because it just caused a lot of self-reflection, introspection. And over this last year, I've been able to change things up with our team, start implementing new things, sharing more load again with more leaders, giving people more responsibilities, helping people find their unique talents and gifts and pour them into the greater whole, which makes people have purpose and feel fulfilled. And so I think it started out as a really shocking, sad thing, but it's turned into, how can we become better because of this? How can we turn something, unhappy into something that allows us to bless more people and go and do more things? And it's required me to keep my focus and not look at what the other people are doing that have left, to not worry about somebody else's path, but to really, what you focus on grows. So to focus on, how can I get better? How can I help my team get better? How can I serve more people? And I think that's what's carried me through. It's almost been 9 or 10 months now. So.
And we know, not necessarily talk about anybody in particular, but we do know that some of the people who have left, over this season, it has been, a little, there's been some tension, because it hasn't always been pretty in terms of how maybe certain people have come back and treated our teams or treated us, or, whatever it might be. I'm just curious, without going into those details, how you, and I don't know that this happened to you. We didn't even talk about this, but if you want to talk in general, you can talk in general, you can talk about your personal experience. But what do we do when we just feel like someone has mistreated us or is not acting with integrity or whatever it might be? How do we not allow that? John 10:10 says the devil came to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus came to give us life and abundantly. How do we stay focused, keep your thoughts on things above, not things below, right? How do we, and Kim Douglas just talked about in the previous podcast, staying in that higher level mindset instead of getting stuck in that lower. How do you do that, especially if you're experiencing it personally, but even it's such a temptation to live in the fear or the bitterness or the anger or the whatever. How do you not do that and rise above and stay above?
Yeah. I think it requires self-work. It requires a commitment to living above reproach. It requires doing the hard work. I had all those feelings. I got a book on forgiveness, and I have a journal that I'm going through on forgiveness. And I realized that maybe the ugly parts I saw in other people, I have ugly parts inside of me that I had to work on. So instead of looking out, I instead took the mirror and I'm not responsible for their actions. I'm responsible for my reactions and how I respond to people. And so I had to really do some inner work with God and myself, and figuring out how I can lead with integrity, move forward with integrity, and not allow outer influences to dictate who I am or how I act, which is a discipline. It's another discipline. I feel like that's my discipline, in this season is that internal, realizing that I still have stuff to work on helps you give grace to other people who might be making choices that you don't understand or you don't agree with.
Right. Or even hurt you.
Yeah, or hurt you. Yeah.
Yeah. It really has been an incredible journey of faith and trust and taking those leaps. And, whether it's taking a big risk or what feels like a risk, or having the courage to go for something, or, reacting in the best way possible when some challenges happen to you. And it feels like a big part of your journey has been to keep saying, I'm going to kind of rise above. I'm going to trust God. For the person out there, just to end us, and you've spoken from main stage conference 3 times. I think we said right in your bio, you're a big deal. We want to say that. Right? I can say that. You shouldn't say that. Maybe you shouldn't say that about yourself, but I can say that about you. So that's what I'm here for. But you're a big deal. And I would just say, and I don't know, maybe at conference, you can't, of course, we kind of separate some things at conference, but here on the podcast, you can. And I'm wondering if you were standing on the stage at conference and you're like, faith has been a massive part of my journey. And I want to leave everybody, whatever you believe, I want to kind of, through my story, tell you that faith has been a massive part of my journey, and encourage you to choose faith over fear, choose, peace over anxiousness, right? To choose clarity over all the complexity and confusion. What are the last few words you would leave with somebody who just needs to hear this talk you're about to give?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, you can take a second. You can take a second. We're still on. If you hear silence, it's
yeah,
okay.
We're still here. I'm just thinking. That's a good one. I would encourage them that they are capable of more than they ever imagine, but it may be harder than they ever imagine in different ways. And that hard does not mean you need to stop. I read a book recently, and the whole thing was about resistance is for you. Typically, when you encounter resistance in your life, in your relationship, in your business, it means you need to dig deeper. You need to push through. It's taking you to the next level, that resistance. And so accepting and believing and not losing faith that you are made for so much more, but that it's going to require those leaps of faith, those steps into the greatness that you're hoping to achieve.
I love it. You're capable of so much more, but it might require so much more.
Yes.
And Michelle, thank you so much for being on. This was incredible.
Thank you. Loved it.